All right, welcome back to another session. I am going to do a colorful Ogee pattern today. And I was inspired by these analogous colors, the green, blue, and violet. So I picked some of those colors. This one is the New Violet by Effetri. And then I think I have it's either a dark sky blue or a light turquoise. And the Opaque green again in stringer form. And I wanted to put this pattern together. You know, I've done the Ogee before, but just in black and white. And I wanted to do this one in color. And it's very interesting how different opaque colors will just react differently to each other. Sometimes you'll get a nice hard edge in between them. Other times you'll get a softer edge. Sometimes you get like a crazed edge, which is interesting. So you want to know what opaque colors are going to work with each other when you're doing dot patterns. And this one, I just really enjoyed the way the colors played together. So I am just going to start by wrapping my glass up very slowly. I take my time wrapping it up on the mandrel. And once I've gotten there, I'll just roll it out and get my final shape going. And I'll also add a whole nother wrap to this because I do want it bigger. And I'm not going to add any transparent to this. It's all opaque color. So I want to make sure that my base bead is close to the size I want it to be in the end. And I'm just going to shape that up. I had a couple issues right there when I was rolling it out. If you roll it out too hot, it can kind of fold over on itself. So you want to be careful to be very gentle when you roll, even though it still happens to me sometimes. But what I do like to do is kind of cut my bead in half with the heat. So I'll have one side cool, which allows me to roll the hot side out nice and evenly. And that's kind of my trick that I've always done, is working the bead from one side to another side. And then we'll get our next layer of glass on here. And as we do that, I was thinking about the other week where I left off with that when I was working at the pavilion, and that one interim director was there, and she gave me the psychiatrist's card. She wasn't in that position for too much longer. They ended up hiring someone that was a glass artist, who was a very good glass artist, a lot better of a glass artist than a manager. I'll say that. But you know, he did the kind of Venetian goblet work, the thin stuff. And I know that's why they wanted to hire this individual. I honestly have to say I don't think this person ever managed anything before or after his stint at the pavilion. But, you know, he was kind of like a squarehead Boy Scout kind of a guy. He could be funny. He played guitar, real nice. There was a side of him that was like very, very cool, very funny, easy to get along with, you know, like a cool person. And then there was this other side of him that, you know, how it does come out after somebody's, you know, been working with you for a while, somebody new. It's like living with somebody. All of a sudden things are different when you get to know their habits and quirks and things like that. And this guy had some bad habits. He was not only was he a liar, but you know, he was also kind of racist too, and he was really misogynistic. He always made fun of the women, you know, that worked in the museum. Are the head of the glass like collection. She was a German lady, and she had a German accent, and he would always make fun of her accent. I couldn't stand it. But you know, it was little things like that I would notice that would just grate on my nerves. And there was actually a very, very nice gentleman who was doing some cold working at the pavilion before this person was hired. And he looked at me one day and he said, well, if that man is hired here, you will never see me again. And I said, well, why? And he goes, well, because he's racist. The guy I was talking to was I think he was Haitian. Anyway, very, very cool glass artist who did cold working. And he was right. As soon as this individual was hired, I never saw him again. He left. He was just like, I'm not going to deal with this. I've already dealt with this individual in Michigan, and he is not a very good person. So things right off the bat, I was kind of concerned before this person was even hired. Anyway, so they got hired. And a liar. I mean, this guy, after a couple of years, going by and I'm working with this person, things would happen. Equipment would break, things would shut down. And I remember being in his office and he was talking to some of the other guys and he was like, oh, I had to tell him across the street that I told him that Robin broke the sandblaster. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, I didn't want to tell him I did it. So, stuff like that. And I'm just like, why? And I would just start to come home every day in less and less of a good mood. Now, because the techs were all unionized at the museum and we were part of the union, there was different rules for us all of a sudden. And, if we wanted to complain about something, we had to, come up with like a grievance process, something like that. And then you would have to go to the main building, into the, the office of this one lady, and then you'd have to sit down and, have a big chit chat about it and try to work things out. It was just like being back in high school again. That's kind of what working there ended up being. Just so many, like too many cooks in the kitchen kind of a thing. Well, what's good for this person isn't good for that person, and we'll let this person do that but not that person. And it was just getting more and more toxic for me. Sorry about that. But it was just getting more toxic as the days went by. And, anytime I had a grievance against this person, the people at the museum, the HR people, they would always be on the side of management. So, and it's just like, how is that going to work out then? If you're always on the side of management, then what am I doing? How can I rectify what's going on? How can I fix this problem? But anyway, I just think it all boiled down to people wanting control and power. And then of course you had the whole two hot shops, Hot Shop 1 and Hot Shop 2, and that whole thing. If you worked at the museum, you could work in Hot Shop 2. If you didn't work at the museum, you had to work, if you worked at the museum, you could work in Hot Shop 1, and that was the big hot shop, the cooler hot shop, the one where the audience watched. But if you didn't work at the museum, or if you were just kind of like renting time, like I would be allotted so much time to blow glass, that would be in the second hot shop, the smaller one. And in that hot shop, we had 3 glory holes, you guys, a big one and 2 small ones. And they almost never turned the big one on because we would just die from the heat. But there were times when people would come in and want to use that big glory hole and make this like, massive work and all, macho stuff and everything. I remember some people coming in, with the whole, you've never seen anything done like this before. We're the only ones doing this, that kind of a thing. And I just have to roll my eyes because I can't handle that kind of talk. But, they would want to use the big stuff. And so there was always complaints from Hot Shop 2, the rental hot shop. At first it was overfilled, and then over time the attitude and also the heat and everything just got to the point where people stopped coming to blow glass. Like after the 13 years, like when I was almost done, it wasn't as popular. The hot shop was not as popular as it was when it first opened, just because not only of the managers, but also because of the temperatures and the environment of that hot shop. But then some people, that's all they had. So that's all I had. That's all Patrick had. So that's, where we went. And, I was given 2 blow slots a week as part of my, it was kind of part of my package, my job, once I got a full-time position there. And there were points where I would get so bummed out with where, with what was happening at work that I didn't want to even go back in to blow glass on my own time. I mean, I would be ready, and then the morning would come, and I would look at Patrick, and I'm like, dude, I just can't do it. I can't go in there. I must have lost, a couple years worth of blow time, especially at the end, because I was too, the anxiety was too much for me to even go in there on my own time and enjoy to blow glass. I couldn't even do that. And it was hard to enjoy blowing glass when it was 150 degrees in there. And you're only so far, you have all this hot equipment all around you. Yeah, it was, I kind of felt like it was getting dangerous for me at least. So I'm going to start adding, let's get back to this bead. I'm going to start adding some of these green dots on top and in the center of the green stripe. And then I'm going to add some smaller ones right below that. You'll see me starting to add all these dots. And this is what is going to make this Ogee pattern spread out and look real nice. And I'll do the same thing with the blue dots as well. Now, the blue cane is interesting because it definitely it had an effect with the violet. Kind of a blurry effect around the edges. I can't say that this was like my favorite colorful Ogee pattern ever, because I don't do them that often, but I did like it enough to share it with you all. So you have to let me know what you think of these color combinations in the end. I find that they were nice and cool and on the subtle side. The pattern is kind of subtle. Plus it's been really hot here. We're in a heat wave right now, and I just needed to have some, I think that's why I'm attracted to working with cooler colors. But so going back to that museum, there, I have to say, let me think about some good times that I had there. Patrick and I would always do, when the pavilion came around, we would be the ones who did the holiday glass blowing demo for the museum's holiday party, and the museum always had a great holiday party. It was food, fun, music, live music, dancing, and they would use the pavilion once we moved in there as their party spot. So everybody wanted to party over there, and I am not a partier, so I would always opt to blow glass instead of sit there and mix and mingle with people that I don't even know. Like I said, you know, I really never felt like I was part of the museum because I only worked in the hot shop sections. And again, moving into the pavilion, there was no offices in there. I mean, there were, but it was mainly for the people who were running the hot shops. Everybody else's offices and all the curators and all that stuff, it was in the main building. But where was I going with that? So anyway, Patrick and I, yes, we did the holiday demonstrations, and it was so much fun because people would come in and watch us blow glass, and I would just have to focus on what we're doing, and then once we're done, we're out of there, you know. And we would always make a vessel with some kind of a theme, and Patrick would do a whole bunch of cane drawing on it. Like he would write like Toledo Museum of Art 2006, Christmas party or something like that, and we'd draw, have a tree on it or something. But so that was always kind of neat, and there was a lot of fun. The parties were really cool. Most of the time I was on the hot shop side watching the parties from inside the studio, and because the whole building is glass, you can see everything that's happening outside and around you. Talk about distracting. And working in Hot Shop 1, the main hot shop, the visitor hot shop, that was the better of the two hot shops. It was so much cooler. There was more room to walk around. It was easier to... It was just easier to work in that studio. It had nothing to do with that there was, the people can see you. It had nothing to do with that. It was just a cooler studio environment all around, temperature-wise. But over the years, they stopped letting, at least when I was there was a point where they kind of stopped letting people blow glass so much in Hot Shop 1. And then, they would let people work in there in the morning. There was a morning spot. And that would end at 11. And the museum opens at 11. So people will walk into the museum and nothing is going on in that hot shop. And it was so frustrating to me that the only times that people could see work being made in the hot shop was at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, something like that. The two demos, maybe it was 12 and 2. There was only 2 demos during the day. And that was it. And they were half-hour demos. I mean, sometimes, when they would have big artists come in, and then it was a whole different thing. They would work in that main hot shop the whole time they were there, and it would be, an exciting environment where you're learning and you're helping with these, people, making their work, and, but then when they were gone, it would be like an empty shop, so you're coming in to just see nothing. And it was just frustrating to me. All around, I was frustrated, you guys. I don't want to talk about it too much more, but in the end, basically, this guy, the manager and I, we ended up really having some hard beef with each other. I don't like you and you don't like me, so you stay out of my face and I'll stay out of yours, kind of a thing. And when I decided to leave the museum, because I was in the union, it was not as easy as just I'm gonna quit. No way was I gonna quit that job. I wanted to make sure, that there was a consequence for this person before I left. So I had to get a lawyer. I lawyered up, and my grievance was finally heard, and I left the museum on bad terms, and there was severance pay that they owed me because I got a lawyer. And then about 2 years later, after I had left that job, the same thing happened to another girl tech, and then finally they got rid of that guy. And then he ended up getting a job somewhere in I think he's actually working in Corning right now. So good luck for those people. But yeah, he was like the worst thing that could have happened to the museum when it came to how he treated people and how unfair he was to some people and how fair he was to other people, and just the lies and the manipulation, and it was just like crazy. Anyway, so I think that I know I'm in a much better place now, you guys, for sure, because I'm trying my best to work for myself, which is probably where I should have started, is just doing my own thing. But you got to go out there and you got to test the waters and see what's available. And, who knows? Maybe if that guy hadn't shown up, I would still be there. But then I have to look back and think, well, if did all that have to happen in order for me to start a YouTube channel? I wonder sometimes. But I guess so, because I always look back on my life and go, well, gosh, all that was meant to happen so I could get here. It's crazy to me. Crazy to me. You got to go through good and bad. But yeah, so I had left the museum on March 3rd of 2013. And that was my last day. And then I spent the next year and a half on the couch, in my bed, not thinking about glass, not wanting to think, not wanting to look at glass. I didn't touch glass. I didn't flame work. I did nothing for 18 months because I was so devastatingly depressed about what had happened at the museum and how I felt like the people that were working there took my job away from me. And it took me many, many years and many people saying it wasn't you, Robin, for me to realize that it wasn't me. But there's still a part of me that creeps in, and it gets all high on my little horse, and I don't like the museum, and, I'm not going to drive, by the museum ever again, that kind of attitude. And, like in the last video, I had to remind myself that it's not the building I'm mad at, it's the people in the building I'm mad at. But anyway, that is some of my museum story in a nutshell. And with that said, we're almost done with this bead. I hope you all enjoy this one. I know it was a little weird. I feel so strange opening up to you all about all this. But at the same time, it does feel good to be able to, just talk some things out. Anyway, I hope you all enjoy this fun, colorful Ogee that I made and enjoyed my story as well. Things will pick up after this one in the next video, and we'll get back on to a more positive note. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna finish this one up here by grabbing a couple. Well, I didn't know which one to grab. I grabbed the green and then the blue, and then I think I end up with the purple or something here, but I'm gonna end up with a few stringers, and I'm gonna use the I'm just going to start to add some very, very small, tiny Swiss dots on the top of this. I thought that would be a fun ending. And also I wanted to give it a little bit of texture, so I didn't melt everything in all the way. So this is just kind of my very end decoration on our design. I've really enjoyed making these Ogee patterns too. It is so much fun to make. There's a couple different ways you could do it. The black and white one I did is a little different from this one because I was only using 2 colors. But it still is an interesting way to work just 2 colors. In this one, obviously, I'm using more colors, but I really enjoyed the way it came out and just having all those little dots everywhere. I might add more. We'll see here. I'm thinking about the museum, you guys. I'm trying not to think about it anymore. Sometimes it's, there were days that I would walk up to that building and just be fascinated by how beautiful it was. And just think, every time I would walk down into we had to go to the basement to get in before that museum was open. So we'd go in after hours through the basement. But just going up to the building itself was always such a delight for me because I was always like, wow, I am working in one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever worked in my life. How can it be that so much drama and so much negativity can happen in such a beautiful building? And it just seemed like everybody had their own drama to deal with. And when you don't want drama, sometimes you get sucked in no matter what. And there's nothing you can do about it except to, at some point, just jump ship. All right, you guys, I'm done with this one. We're just going to melt it in a little bit more. And as always, let me know what you think about this one. I hope you enjoyed. And as always, I hope to see you all next time in the dungeon.